morning, everyone. So I'll be discussing about slit lamp evaluation techniques. May I know how many of you are first year students? Okay. So first of all, slit lamp is a slit lamp biomicroscopy. Why it's called biomicroscopy? Because it's a dynamic examination of a living eye and ocular adnexa. So in this examination, slit is basically a misnomer since it's one of the various diaphragmatic opening which is present in the instrument. And it's an important examination tool for all the ophthalmologists to visualize eye in three-dimensional structures. Now, for doing a slit lamp biomicroscopy, there are basically three requirements. The first is that the clinician should possess a third grade of binocularity, that is stereopsis. The second requirement is the direction of the incoming light source you have to familiar with. And the third one is the shape of the slit. That will decide the type of illumination which you are using during the biomicroscopy. So why do we need a slit lamp? Because our ocular structure is so small that it's very difficult to identify various findings on torchlight examination, and it's also very difficult to make out a relative position of a lesion. If you want to know the depth of the lesion or size of a lesion, then it's very difficult to do with a torchlight examination. So you require a slit lamp for that, and you also need an oblique illumination. Need for magnification and need for binocularity is required. So let's look into the history. It first started by Purkinje in way back in 1830s, who applied microscopy for the living eye. He studied the iris with adjustable microscope, and later on, Louis V. Decker, who invented uniocular slit lamp, he combined eyepiece, objective, and condensing lens within a tube. And later on, the binocularity was added to a microscope by Zapsky. And you all are familiar with this gentleman who is Albert Goldstein, who got a Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine on August of 3rd, 1911 for the invention of slit lamp. So first he started with a basic model which was like an ophthalmoscope. Later on it was modified into a slit lamp by Henker and Vogt, who improved upon his device by combining Zapsky's microscope and Goldstein's slit lamp illumination. So I'll just discuss about the parts of a slit lamp, where there are basically three parts: illumination system, observation system, and mechanical system. So illumination system, this is the observation system, and this is the mechanical system. I'll discuss in details. So illumination system is a basically light source, which is a low voltage incandescent lamp or a halogen lamp. Nowadays LED is also included. So based on illumination system, we have two models: Hackstead type and Zeiss type. So in Hackstead type, what you see that the illumination system is on top of observation system, whereas in Zeiss type, the observation is on top of illumination system. So this is the illumination system. The basic parts are: this is the headrest, this is the chin rest, this is the joystick, which is attached with the mechanical system, and this is the eyepiece, which is a part of observation system. This is the power unit. And coming to observation system, magnification, there is a knob. So you can have 3-point magnification or 5-point magnification. So in Hackstead, we have 5-point magnification, with which you can do various type of examination, which I'll be discussing later on. So on observation system, eyepiece, you have to familiar with eyepiece. This is very, very important. So here you can see a 0 mark. So whenever you're examining, you have to always adjust at 0 mark, or if you have any refractive error, then if you don't want to use glasses, then based on your refractive error also, you can adjust it accordingly and examine the patient. And very important is that you should always know what is your interpupillary distance. So based on that, you have to get the binocularity. So this is an extra thing which we can attach with the observation system. So if you want to teach your juniors and if you want to show any findings simultaneously, then you can attach this extra observation system with the microscope. This is the mechanical support. So here joystick is attached. You can just move backward, forward, upwards and downwards with the help of it. Now coming to positioning of the patient, this is very, very important. So here you can see the forehead is approximated with the headrest, and chin is nicely opposed here, and you can see one canthal alignment mark. So this is very, very important. This canthal alignment mark should be opposed nicely with the lateral canthus. There are some special situations when you get to examine pediatric patients and morbid patients. So pediatric patients you can examine in standing position also, or you can position the child like this, or you can ask the patient to keep the child on their lap and then accordingly you have to examine. Patients who are not able to walk, this patient was a hemiplegic patient, so it was very difficult for him to shift the slit lamp. So we can examine the patient along with the wheelchair itself. Now adjusting the slit lamp width, here you can see this is a knob with which you can adjust the width of the slit lamp and you can examine comfortably. Now there is a scale on the slit lamp diaphragm. So here you can adjust the width of the slit and you can measure various lesions on the ocular structures. So suppose if you have corneal ulcer and if you have hypopyon, if you want to measure the height of the hypopyon, then you can increase the slit. And measuring the dimension of the epithelial defect also, you can use the slit diaphragm. Now in the illumination system itself, there is a system with which you can observe the vitreous. So you can gently tilt it with few degrees and you can visualize the anterior mid vitreous. Now there are various filters in the slit lamp, which is white light filter, grey filter, red green filter, diffuse filter and cobalt blue. So here you can see this is a white light filter, this is a grey filter, then we have a red grey filter and then a cobalt blue filter. So before starting the procedure, you should always introduce yourself and explain the procedure. Adjust the height of the slit lamp, adjust the chin rest, make sure your patient is comfortable, sit comfortably, never stand and examine. Always adjust your IPD and focus according to your refractive error. Start with the lowest illumination and magnification and then gradually you increase it. And at the end of the procedure, you turn off the illumination, make it comfortable for the patient to get up, decrease the height of the chair and make space by moving the table housing the slit lamp out of the way. So this is basically a Hackstead microscope with which system is also attached. So once you are examining, you can also take photography and videography of the patient for serial documentation. Coming to illumination techniques, we have basically two illumination techniques, diffuse and focal illumination. So I'll be discussing about each illumination one by one. Focal illumination we can further classify into direct and indirect. In direct, we have parallel piped optical section, conical beam and tangential and specular reflection. Indirect illumination, we have proximal, retroillumination, transillumination and sclerotic scatter. So here on diffuse illumination, intensity of the light is kept maximum and angle between observation and illumination is around 30 degrees and beam width is kept maximum and magnification is kept minimum and we use a diffuser for that. So you can examine gross overview of the eyes, eyelid adnexa, any lid lesions, conjunctival lesions, any corneal finding on a diffuse illumination. It basically gives an overview. This is a diffuser. So once you're doing the diffuse illumination, you have to lift it up and then you can do your examination. So these are various lesions which you can examine. So can someone tell what is the first lesion? Yeah, this is an OSSN. Second one is a hypopyon corneal ulcer. This one? Yeah, this is a well elevated bleb and this is the avascular cystic bleb. Next one is a parallelepiped examination. So this is basically a three-dimensional examination of the cornea. In this, the settings are intensity should be kept maximum and angle is around 30 to 45 degrees and beam is parallelepiped. Parallelepiped means it's basically 2 to 4 mm wide beam width. Magnification can be kept moderate and it basically gives idea about size and depth of the lesion. So here in this diagram you can see on diffuse illumination you can see one lesion is there, but once you make a parallelepiped section then you can see the lesion is mostly at the endothelial level. So in this examination you can actually see the depth and you can also measure the size of the lesion. So here in this illumination you can see there are prominent corneal nerves which are seen. Coming to optical section. Optical section is basically modification of parallelepiped. So in parallelepiped we are using 2 to 4 mm. Here you have to use a thin beam which is around 1 to 2 mm. So intensity is kept moderate and angle is 30 to 45 degrees and magnification is also kept moderate. So this basically gives a detailed examination of the cornea, depth and size of the lesion, corneal edema, thinning, ectasia can also be seen, and it also gives an idea about anterior chamber depth and grade of the cataract. So here you can see, we can visualize the various layers of cornea. I'm not sure whether picture is clear. So first is basically it's giving Van Herrick's grading. Here you can see angle is very shallow. So in this optical section you can grade your angles, and in the second diagram there is endothelitis. So there is hyperreflectivity at the level of endothelium. In this diagram you can see here corneal thinning is there superiorly. In the second diagram you can also see there is a fungal corneal ulcer with corneal thinning. So these lesions can be better visualized on optical sections. In the first diagram, what is there? Yeah, DMD is there, and the second one you can grade your cataracts. Coming to conical beam, in this the settings intensity is kept maximum, angle is around 45 degrees, and beam width is minimum, and magnification is kept maximum. So this is basically used for examination of your anterior cells and flare. So how you do, can someone tell? Here usually you will make a circular beam of light, and first you have to focus at the cornea, and gradually you have to defocus, and then you have to focus along in the midpoint of iris and cornea. So at that point you have to keep your magnification higher, and then you have to look for your cells in flare. So in the second diagram you can see cells, and the last diagram you can see 4 plus flare is there. This was a case of endophthalmitis. Coming to tangential illumination, here the settings, the intensity is kept maximum, and angle is usually more than 45 degrees, and beam width is parallel pipette, and magnification is kept moderate. So this is basically used to see various texture of the surface. So here you can see in this particular case, we had pseudo exfoliation. So you can see at the pupillary rough there are some pseudo exfoliation deposits, and once we directed the patient, we saw PXF deposit over the anterior lens capsule. So this is by this illumination you can better visualize these kind of findings. Next one is coming on spectroreflection. So specular, the term is a basically a Latin term which is specularis, which means mirror-like. So spectroreflection is the reflected image of the light source itself, and it's based on Snell's law of optics, which is angle of reflection is equal to angle of incidence. And the brightness of the reflection depends on the reflectivity of the surface on which it is seen. So your surface should be smooth. So in this example you can see the first diagram, the water is completely smooth, so the reflection is seen better. But in second one there is ripple in the water, so the reflection distorted. So similar thing happens with the cornea also. Here the intensity is kept maximum, and angle is usually 30 degrees. So whenever you are examining, your observation and illumination makes an angle of 60 degrees. So 30 degrees each it will make from the center. Beam is parallel pipette, and magnification is kept high. So this you have to always remember, and this is used to visualize the corneal endothelial layer. So in the first diagram you can see this is the intensity, high intensity light, and behind that you can see hexagonal mosaic shaped cells which are endothelial cells. So they are basically better visualized on a higher magnifications. And you can find some abnormal endothelial cells when they have like heterogeneous cells, or any pigment deposition, any guttae or beaten metal appearance can be picked up. Can you tell what is shown in this diagram? Which case you will see? Fuchs endothelial dystrophy. Coming to focal indirect illumination, which is a proximal illumination. So in this, intensity is kept maximum, angle is 30 to 45 degrees, and beam width is parallel pipette, and magnification is kept moderate. So here corneal opacities or foreign bodies can be seen directly. So here we are not focusing the light directly on the lesion, just adjacent to the lesion we are focusing, and then the lesion is becoming more prominent. So here you can see this in the first diagram it was examined on diffuse illumination, but in the second diagram if we are focusing the light adjacent to the lesion is becoming more prominent. Coming to retroillumination techniques, we can divide into two types: iris retroillumination and fundus retroillumination. So iris retroillumination, here we are focusing the light on the iris, and the light is reflected back on the cornea, and the corneal lesions will become more prominent. So here intensity is kept maximum, angle is decentered, and we use parallel pipette diagram, beam width, and magnification is kept moderate. So here fine corneal structures such as vacuoles, vessels, and epithelial edema can be easily picked up. So in the first diagram you can see the vascularity has become more prominent. Second one, can someone tell what is the finding? Second finding. So here you can see pigment arrangement over the corneal surface. So this is Krukenberg spindle, which is seen in pigment dispersion syndrome. Coming to fundus retroillumination. So here the light is focused on the retina and it's reflected back. So here the intensity is kept to maximum and angle is slightly decentered, and beam width is usually a short beam, and magnification is kept moderate. So it's better for posterior subcapsular cataracts and lens capsule opacification. So here you can see in retroillumination the PCO has become more prominent. Coming to iris transillumination. Iris transillumination, here pupil is not dilated. We are examining an undilated pupil. So here intensity is kept maximum and angle is coaxial. In the same axis you have to align your observation piece. Beam width is circular beam and no filter is used. Magnification is kept moderate, and here you can examine the iris defects, pigment dispersion syndrome, iatrogenic trauma, and PI patency can also be examined. So can someone tell what are the findings? First diagram. First diagram is a mid-peripheral iris transillumination defect, which is seen in PDS. The second one, there is a localized iris defect is there. The third one, down one. Third one, what is the case? This is case of oculocutaneous albinism. Fourth one, geographic iris atrophic patches, which is seen in herpetic keratouveitis. Coming to sclerotic scatter, here we are using the phenomenon of total internal reflection.
Doctor,
so
you have last 5 minutes. You
yes,
can
sir.
Quickly
So
go
in
through.
sclerotic scatter, the intensity is kept to maximum and angle is slightly decentered, and beam width is kept parallelepiped and no filter is used. Magnification is kept low. It is used to differentiate scar and infiltrate. So this is the principle, focusing the light at limbus, and total internal reflection along the outermost and innermost surface of the cornea appears, and any obstruction to the path of light scatters the light and helps in differentiation of scar from the infiltrate. It's also helpful in visualization of corneal dystrophy. So in this is a normal case. Here on examining, putting the light on the sclera, you can see a halo around the cornea. This is a normal case. Here you can see on the left side, this is a diffuse illumination, and on the right side, this is a sclerotic scatter. The scar has become more prominent. You can also visualize corneal rings. This is intact, and the second diagram, you can see the infiltrates have become more prominent on sclerotic scatter. We can also use special filters like red-green filter, cobalt blue filter. So here intensity has to be kept to maximum and angle 30 to 45 degrees, beam width is wide and filter blue or green, and magnification is kept low. So here we can use by using fluorescein and rose bengal staining. So this is a case of fluorescein staining. Here you can see positive serial test. There is a washout of the dye. In the first diagram you can see serials is positive in a bleb leak. The second diagram is a rose bengal staining, which is seen in OSSN cases. Here again rose bengal and lysamine green staining is there. Additional uses we can also use in application tonometry, contact lens fitting, and you can also use slit lamp in doing your fundus evaluation by using 78 and 90 Ds, and slit lamp photography and videos can also be taken. Anti-chamber assessment and gonioscopy can also be done. You can also do certain procedures like corneal scraping, suture removals, AC reformation, bleb needling, and toric marking can be done. And you can also examine a donor cornea. So this is a system where this is a tissue holder which is attached to the slit lamp, and you keep your donor cornea, which is kept in corneasol media, and you can also evaluate your donor cornea. So based on that, you can grade your cornea, whether it's an optical grade cornea or therapeutic grade cornea, or it's not suitable for surgeries. This is a small video which is showing suture removal. So you ask the patient, you put local anesthetic in the eye, ask the patient to look down, whichever area of interest is there, put your light and then gently remove the sutures. This is a video which is showing gonioscopy. This is a gonioscopy image. Can someone tell what is this one? This is a double hump sign which is seen in plateau iris. You can also do your 90D examination, and you can also do your apparition tonometry. This is a picture which is showing toric marking. We can also do on slit lamp. So my conclusion is that slit lamp examination is an indispensable part of a complete ocular examination, and it is an interplay between illumination and observation. That is a skill which has to be perfected, and the more we use, the better we become. So thorough knowledge and repeated practice of all the examination technique is the key to become a good clinician. Thank you so much.